What do you do when life gets too busy for you to knit? This is knitting. This is a fun hobby. It's like even just looking at it in the camera, I'm like, ooh. Hello everyone, welcome back to Josie Violet Knit. My name is Josie Violet and I'm here to talk to you about all things knitting. Now, I feel like with most knitting podcast episodes, there's usually a formula of finished objects, whips, and then acquisitions. I really wanted to film a knitting podcast episode, but I have no finished objects, and I was feeling a bit bad about that and thinking, well, maybe I just shouldn't film a podcast episode. Then I kind of just really wanted to sit down and talk with you guys about what I've been up to knitting wise. I feel like I have been knitting a lot, I just haven't finished anything. So if you're up for it, this is a knitting podcast episode with no finished objects. I'm going to talk to you about that. I'm going to talk to you about a lot of the things I've been knitting on, and I'm going to talk to you about my trip to the world's best button shop, or the best button shop that I've ever been to when I was in Sydney. And I'm going to do all of that while I'm knitting on my Maggie cardigan. If you've been following me for any length of time, you'll know that I have been knitting this Maggie cardigan since May. It is now October, and I don't feel like I've made much progress at all. So if you're also drowning in a sea of whips, I encourage you to grab whichever one you're enjoying the most at the moment, sit down with me, and then if that's the only knitting you do in your day, then at least you can say you did that. So we'll get into some of my whips, but I guess what's been on my mind a little bit lately is, what do you do when life gets too busy for you to knit? I recently have been to Sydney, I have gotten back, I am actually having some changes with my job at the moment. I am also potentially moving house soon and buying a house for the first time. And all of these big kind of life changes has happened, all seemingly in the space of a few weeks or a few months. And it's quite overwhelming. There's a lot of things to do. And I feel like sometimes even just taking my dog for a walk and making sure she's cared for and looked after can feel a bit overwhelming. And then adding to that, trying to find time to knit and relax and sit down, while also trying to exercise and not let my body just sort of rot on the sofa all day, finding time to cook and eat and clean my house, and all of those things sometimes just get a bit overwhelming, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this. So I wanted to share some things that I've been thinking about that have been helping me through this kind of transition time. One of those things is I need to stop looking at patterns and looking at yarn as much as I have. While that is a really, really fun, almost side activity to the actual act of knitting, I feel like you can swallow up so much time just scrolling through Ravelry, looking at different things. And don't get me wrong, I love doing that. You know from my pattern roundups that I love a Ravelry bundle. But I think that sometimes I can almost spend more time doing that than I spend knitting, which is kind of pointless because I have so many projects in my queue. I have so many whips that if I just keep adding more projects into the queue, then I'm never really going to actually get to those projects that I'm looking at. I also have put myself on a yarn buying ban at the moment. As you can see behind me, I have more than enough yarn to be going on with. I do not need to purchase any more for the time being, at least until the end of the year. I definitely don't need anything else. So that has also helped a little bit. And I've been trying to fit my knitting into more different places. Like for example, if I'm going, quite often I go around my parents' house for dinner or like a takeaway on a Saturday, and I always bring my knitting there because I feel like they don't mind if I'm just sitting and knitting. If I'm just going to be sat down somewhere, I might as well just bring my knitting. I also have been bringing my knitting when I'm going somewhere on the train. And I've also been trying to find time to fit in knitting clubs into my week, whether that's in the evenings or on the weekends. They kind of give you the socializing aspect while you're actually knitting at the same time as well. I also feel like there is a slight pressure on social media, which I think is getting a bit better lately, but there's just so many people creating so many amazing finished objects all the time, and it can sometimes feel like if you're not cranking out the finished objects, you know, almost weekly, that you're somehow falling behind. But I just don't think it's realistic, especially because most people who have knitting accounts online, a lot of them are knitwear designers, so they actually do it as a job, so they have a lot more spare time to be knitting because it is literally their job. Or people just have certain circumstances that mean they have more spare time, and that's great for them, but that doesn't mean that everyone has that amount of spare time, and I think that's okay. And we all kind of come at things from different speeds. I posted a reel the other day that was saying the first comment I always get whenever someone finds out that I knit the thing that I'm wearing, and the first thing they always say is, "How long did that take?" And then someone left an interesting comment under that saying that they prefer to gauge the time based on the hours spent actually knitting rather than the period of time that it took. So instead of saying like this took me 2 weeks, you could say, well, this was actually 40 hours of my life or 20 hours of my life or something. And I think that's a much better way of looking at it, because then you can get a genuine sense of how long it actually took in terms of knitting time, like sitting down and knitting, and it kind of reveals how long someone has to actually sit down and knit each day. So if something took someone a week but it was 40 hours of knitting, they're essentially knitting on that full time. And so I think when you look at it from that perspective, it kind of shifts things a bit. And something might take someone 40 hours to knit, but it took them a whole year. And that's because they don't have that many hours in the day to knit. And that is perfectly fine. It actually took those two people the same amount of time to knit that thing. It's just that one person has more hours in a day to knit than the other person, but that doesn't mean anything about how quickly they can actually knit. And even if you do knit fast or slow, it's really no indication on your skill. Someone might knit something really, really fast, but have loads of holes and mistakes and tension issues, whereas someone who's taken a whole year to knit the same thing might have knit it completely beautifully with beautiful tension and absolutely zero mistakes. So I think all of this is to say there's no real reason to rush anything in knitting. It's supposed to be a slow hobby, as I try and remind myself all the time. And I think any pressure that we put on ourselves is silly, because this is knitting. This is a fun hobby that is enjoyable, is relaxing, it's meditative. And I think that can sometimes get forgotten a bit when we're constantly scrolling through the algorithm and looking at what patterns we want to knit, and kind of having these big dreams for how many things we want to crank out in a year. I have this stress watch app on my phone that's connected to my Apple Watch, and it tracks my stress levels. I try and stay in the lower stress range, or not even lower stress. I try and just stay, my goal is to stay on the normal level. Quite often lately I've been on the needs attention, which is you really need to chill out. And I've noticed that when I sit and knit, even just for half an hour, I get a notification on my watch telling me that I'm relaxed and that my stress levels have been low for the last half an hour. And I just find that amazing to see, like, actual proof that the thing that everyone knows, which is that knitting is relaxing, is actually true. Okay, I think I've done enough rambling on that topic. If any of you relate to any of that, let me know. Okay, so let's talk about my port jacket. In the last episode, I was talking about buttons that I wanted to potentially get, and I have some. I went to this shop called All Buttons Great and Small in Sydney. Someone in my comments of my previous podcast episode recommended it, and it genuinely was the best button shop I've ever been to. I don't think I've ever actually been to a shop that is just literally sells nothing but buttons. It sold nothing else, just buttons. So just for the background, these are buttons for my port jacket by Azetta that I'm currently knitting. I'm knitting this with Issachar Aran tweed in the colour Confetti. And because this yarn is like a multicolored yarn, I was finding it quite difficult to decide on the colour of buttons to get. Like, obviously grey is the obvious answer, but there's so many colours in this yarn. I was wondering if maybe I should do like a pop of colour, like a pop of red or something, but then I know that I don't tend to wear like really bright things, so I was a little bit torn, but the ladies in the shop were so helpful. They knew so much about buttons, like a crazy amount. They were like lying all these different buttons. I took my whip in with me and they were lying all these different buttons out on it, and in the end I couldn't decide, so I actually got 2 different kinds, and I will show you which ones I got. The first ones, these are just amazing pearl buttons. Each one is a little bit different, and I think the fact that they reflect different colours kind of fits in with the overall different colours of the jacket itself, and they're all a little bit different. And then I couldn't decide which ones I liked the best, so I ended up going with another set. To be honest, I still can't decide. I want you guys to let me know. I think maybe these second ones are the ones I'm going to go for. These are also toggles, but they are a bit bigger than the other ones, and they also are a bit different. They all have a bit of a variety of shape and texture and colour. Let me know which ones you guys prefer, and I'll be very intrigued to see. This is the first thing I've ever knit with buttons on before, so I'm a little bit like unsure. I mean, I guess I could always just take them off. If I don't like them, I can just change them for the other ones. If you're ever in Sydney, go to All Buttons Great and Small in Newtown. It is so good. In terms of this whip itself, I have now completed one shoulder, and I am getting to work on the second shoulder. I think I mentioned in my last podcast episode that this is slightly not the right gauge of yarn. This is actually, I think, a bit thicker than it's supposed to be because the pattern is worsted and this is Aran. To be honest, I think it's going to be fine. I was a bit worried that it was like super stiff, but I think as I've been knitting more and more, it's sort of almost loosening up a bit or feeling a bit more normal. And yeah, I'm very excited to keep going on this one. I feel like this is maybe slightly lower priority at the moment because let's talk about what my main thing that I've been knitting on at the moment has been, and that has been my rosy sweater. I think the last time I showed you this, I had just started on the first round of roses, and I'm now nearly finished on the second round of roses on the body. And I'm so excited with how this is looking. I've split for sleeves. Let me try this on for you quickly. There's like 4 balls of yarn attached to this, so it's kind of hard to try on, and I'm trying not to let any stitches fall off, but you get the idea. I'm so excited with this. Like, even just looking at it in the camera, I'm like, oh! This is what I'm knitting mainly at the moment. I just love it. I was going to put the neckband on when I got to this section because I thought that would be like a natural break to add the neckband, but I honestly just blazed through this pure stockinette bit so fast that I was already on to the next Colorwork section, and I was like, oh, I'm just going to keep going. So yeah, I have split for sleeves, as you can see. It kind of splits for sleeves about halfway through the first chart, and so I will then continue that chart once I get back to the sleeves and then do another round to kind of mirror this colour work on the sleeves as well. So yeah, I absolutely adore this pattern. I also have seen that Lynette has come out with the rosy sweater mittens, or is coming out soon, and I really really want to knit those as well. Can you imagine having your rosy sweater with your matching rosy mittens? How good would that be? There are some sections that are quite a lot of floats that needed to be caught as well, so I feel like this pattern has really taught me about how I like to catch floats, and I'm really into a rhythm with it now where it doesn't bother me. It's just part of the colourwork process, and I'm really, weirdly, I even enjoy catching floats. That's how far down the colourwork obsession I've gone now. And I don't think there's going to be any stopping me. I just wish there were more colourwork patterns that had a drop shoulder, because I don't love a circular yoke, and I really just want to knit some more drop shoulder colourwork patterns. So if anyone knows of any, let me know, because I'm keen. Not that I need any more patterns to add to my queue. I now have like a million balls of yarn all tangled around me, and I think I'm just going to keep this jumper on because everything is tangled. And speaking of tangles, this skirt just kept getting tangled. So this is the Seashore skirt by Kurta Bakika, which I also love and I'm obsessed with. I feel like I kind of have progressed. It probably doesn't really look like I've progressed much, but I have knit more than double the length it was last time. But even now it has gotten into a tangle. Something to do with this silk yarn. I think it's the yarn, but it just will not stop getting into a tangle. And I was trying to knit this on the plane to Sydney. It was a 24-hour flight, and the balls just kept getting tangled. And by the time I got to the other end, I was knitting it. We went to an Airbnb, and I was just getting so frustrated that I just ended up having to cut the yarn and just like reattach the ball, and kind of lost a bit of the yarn because it was just so tangled. It was so annoying. And yeah, even now as I speak, I feel like it has gotten tangled again. Anyway, I'm just gonna ignore that for now. That's a problem for another day. Yeah, this is coming along. To be honest, I feel like I've slightly lost motivation for it just because it is now getting quite cold here in the UK, and I'm wondering if there is really much wearability that I'm going to be getting out of a lace skirt anytime soon. But then I could wear it with tights, so maybe it would be okay, but it really is starting to get quite cold here quite quickly, so I have slightly lost a bit of my motivation. I'm sure once I get through some of my other whips, I will pick this one up again. But yeah, for now, it's kind of just sitting in a bit of a tangled mess, but we're gonna get there at some point. If there's anyone in the Southern Hemisphere watching, then would definitely recommend, as you're heading into summer, kind of the perfect time to start knitting something like this. For me now, I'm starting to wonder how much use I'm gonna get out of it, but I also really want to have a hand knitted bottom, like skirt or trousers or something, because I have this vision in my head of having a top to toe hand knitted outfit. So I feel like that's the motivation I'm gonna have to use to carry me through knitting this skirt through the winter. Ooh, I was getting too hot. That jumper is very, very warm, which is gonna be good because it's coming into winter. Another motivation to keep knitting it. Now I've just tangled myself into a big mess. Okay guys, you do not want to see the mess that is surrounding me. I've mentioned my buttons. In terms of acquisitions, I've actually been on a yarn buying ban, but there's always a but. I got a gift card from a yarn store for my birthday, which was in August, and so I did order myself some yarn because I didn't pay for it, so it doesn't count. I didn't buy it myself. It's not part of the yarn buying ban. I have got the Peer Gynt purple shade by Petite Knit. This is in the colour 5012, and it is a really fun purple colour. One of my favourite non-hand knitted jumpers that I own is my Barbar sweater, which is actually a very similar shade, almost exactly the same, and I think that was the reason I wanted to knit something in this colour, because I loved this jumper. I just feel like the colour just really, really suits me. It kind of looks quite similar to the Unicorn Purple shade by Knitting for Olive as well. Just that kind of, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like it's almost a bit pastel-y purple, but it does still have a bit of saturation to it. I just really, really love it. And so yeah, I got to go with this. I'm going to hold it with Knitting for Olive Soft Silk Mohair in Pearl Grey. Now this combination is intriguing me. A lot of the time you want to match your mohair to the shade of your yarn, but I'm very intrigued by the variation that you can get when you kind of like a marling effect when you have a different shade of mohair mixed in with your yarn. I just think it looks really, really good, and my rosy sweater has that kind of effect with the different colour mohair, and I think since then I'm like, oh, how else can I kind of mix mohairs together? And it kind of harks back to my obsession with watercolour and mixing colours, and I feel like mixing two different shades of yarn is kind of the closest equivalent you're going to get of colour mixing in knitting versus painting. So the pattern I'm going to be doing with this is the September sweater by Petite Knit, I think. Now that is a brioche pattern, and I have chosen Petite Knit to do my first brioche pattern because I know I can trust her. I feel like comfortable, and I feel like her patterns are very well explained, and I kind of just want to have a simple brioche process for my first time doing brioche. It does kind of scare me. I really, really want to do 2-colour brioche, but I feel like to start off with, I should probably just do a 1-colour brioche project. This is in my queue. I don't know when I'm going to get it done because I've got too many other whips going on, but I just wanted to mention it because I got this yarn for my birthday. Probably something that I'm going to do quite a while in the future. And if any of you have any other brioche pattern suggestions, I'm open to having my mind changed on that pattern. If it's something that I know will be clear and well explained, let me know if you know of any good brioche patterns, because I do love the September sweater, but I feel like maybe there's another one out there that I haven't thought about yet, so let me know if you know of one. It is getting dark outside. I need to invest in some lighting because this winter is going to be hard to film without it getting dark really, really early. It is currently 5:15 and I feel like it's getting dark already. Thank you so much for watching. If you happen to have this weird button below that's called the hype button, can you press it? It's this new thing that YouTube is doing. I don't really understand what it is. I don't even think everyone has it, but if you happen to see a hype button below, give it a press. It will really help me out. And if you don't, you can just do your regular like and subscribe. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. That is it from me. Bit of a weird episode, bit of a rambling episode. I hope you enjoyed. And I'm just gonna go and knit and try and relax because I think I need it. Let me know what you're knitting, of course. I always love to hear about it. And I will see you in the next episode. Bye!